Luigi Mangione still fighting extradition to New York, and it's a process that could take a while, weeks, maybe even months, as he currently sits in one of Pennsylvania's oldest maximum security prisons. NYPD says that the gun he was carrying at the time of his arrest matches the shell casings that were found at the scene of the crime, and his fingerprints match prints that were found on a water bottle near the crime scene in Manhattan. Now, Mangione's lawyer has been saying he's yet to see the evidence, questioned the accuracy of the results, saying he would challenge whether this evidence is admissible in court. Here now, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, Bernarda Villanova. Welcome, Bernarda. Former prosecutor, I should point out, both in New York, which I already knew, but you were saying in Pennsylvania, too, yes. Right? It's in the state of which we're dealing with here. What do you make of the lawyer, this guy, Mr. Dickey, says, no, I'm going to challenge this evidence, which to me, as a layman, seems pretty damning, the prints and the gun.
Yeah, so of course he's going to do his job in the sense of challenging the evidence. So he's going to challenge the evidence in terms of the forensics of it and hiring an expert and challenge it in that way, but also challenging the constitutionality of the stop, of the taking of his backpack, of taking the items out of the backpack, which one of those items was the gun that was allegedly used in this shooting.
Right.
So there are the various avenues that he can attack the evidence and attack this case, but first, we've got to wait and see because he's not in New York yet and he hasn't been indicted by a grand jury yet. He
came on, the lawyer did, with Cuomo the other night, and then last night he went on CNN talking about some of this, a short clip, and then I want to talk about how you might defend this guy. I always find that fascinating because, again, to me it seems like such a tough task, but here's the lawyer.
What we're talking about is fingerprint evidence and some ballistics. Those two sciences in and of themselves have come under some criticism in the past relative to their credibility, their truthfulness, their accuracy, however you want to do it. So that's why, as lawyers, we need to see it. We need to see how do they collect it, how much of it matches.
I guess that the one thing, if you can get any of the evidence, obviously, to be inadmissible, you're helping your client a lot. But what about possible defenses for this guy?
Well, one thing I did notice from the attorney didn't mention anything about any mental defenses in this case,
right,
because that's something you will want to bring to the attention of the court the first time you see the judge, whether he's incompetent to stand trial, whether there's any mental issues that he has now, because you want to set that standard how it will play out for the rest of the trial. But in terms of defenses, I think, of course, like he's saying, he's going to challenge the evidence. He's going to challenge the burden that the prosecution has. Naturally, he's going to have experts come in and testify about the forensic evidence. And let's just remember that this is not your typical gun. This is a gun that was made with a 3D printer. So has technology caught up to the testing of that gun to scientifically determine that that is the gun that was used in this homicide? But the reality of it, the best evidence that we have here is that circumstantial evidence of all those videos, the videos
right,
that were recovered. So how are you going to challenge that?
This guy comes from a well-off family, as everybody's reported on, from Baltimore, went to prep school, he's a valedictorian, went to an Ivy League school in Philadelphia, the University of Pennsylvania. We haven't heard much from his family. A couple of short statements, and his cousin, who's a politician in the area, put out a short statement. But this is from the New York Post, where they say the cops are looking into when the family realized he was wanted in the murder. So from my understanding up until I saw this, it was, well, they don't really have an obligation legally to say anything, even if they recognized him. But where would the line be in your view?
That's correct. So the family doesn't have a duty to report that the person that's being shown in the news, in the media, is their son. The problem lies if an FBI agent or a federal agent had gone to the family and spoken to the family and asked them questions and they lied to the federal authorities, then they will be facing federal criminal charges.
We have no reason to believe that happened.
No, not at all. But in terms of having a duty or being criminally liable for not having reported their son, it doesn't exist.
Right.
It doesn't exist.
Now, if they had helped him in any way,
absolutely,
or
yes,
knew about these, even if maybe if they had known, say, about,
or if they harbored him, if
right,
they harbored him, that would have been an issue.
Or
yes.
What if they knew about? We keep talking about this manifesto, this notebook. If they knew about some of the things he had written, but as far as we know, his mom reported him missing. Said
yes,
November, and said
yes,
the last time she spoke to the kid was on July.
Yes.
So as far as we know, that was the last contact. So he really had gone dark, so to speak. I mean, he hadn't talked to anybody, apparently.
Exactly, exactly. But you never know whether that same information from the family is going to assist in his criminal defense if the defense attorney decides that they want to go with a mental defect as one of their defenses. But still, we're a long way from there. He's still in Pennsylvania, and let's not forget he's facing Pennsylvania charges.
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.